What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for coming back to another video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story. So before we get anywhere into this review, I think the first thing that I need to say about this movie is that this was the first ever Star Wars film that I was very worried about. I did not really want it to come out. I was not really in support of it. And as much as I trust Lucasfilm, I just thought to myself, why would you do this? Why would you announce a Solo film after The Force Awakens, for starters, which if you've seen The Force Awakens, it just felt kind of like a slap in the face of the character. But why would you announce a prequel film that stars another actor as Han Solo without Harrison Ford? That just wasn't really jiving well with me. When I first heard about it and I first heard the announcement of the fact that they cast Alden Ehrenreich, Donald Glover, and even Emilia Clarke, I just felt like, what is going on here? There's also Woody Harrelson in this film. I just felt like this film felt like it wasn't really gonna feel like Star Wars. And for the first time, I started to dive into that mentality that a lot of people have really had about this Disney Star Wars era. And for me, I just had to keep in mind, Disney owns Lucasfilm, but Disney also owns Marvel. Disney allows these studios to do what they want to do. They may, ask them for a specific amount of products in a certain amount of time. However, Lucasfilm gets to make these movies. Lucasfilm gets to use their story group and the people and the things and the resources they have there to tell these stories in the way that's going to be cohesive to Star Wars. And that was the thing that really kept hope for me, because I really do trust Lucasfilm and the people that work there. I trust the people that George Lucas handed down this franchise to. And I trust the fact that there are people there that worked with George Lucas that know his vision, that have worked on these other films with him, and are going to want to continue that story for the love of his creation and the love of him. With all that said, I'll go ahead and say that when I walked out of this film, I was so happy because I loved this film. I had such a good time with it. Now, it's not my favorite Star Wars film, but I feel like it is a great, just boots on the ground Star Wars film that really expands the character of Han Solo. There are definitely things in here that are just kind of telling us everything we heard him say in some of the other films. In the original trilogy, there are little stories and little mentions of things that Han Solo did in his past, and this film is kind of a culmination of all of those stories. It kind of just shows us all of it within this 2-hour and something runtime, and you're either going to be about that or you're not going to be about that. There are also some things like his name that are expanded upon as far as how he became Han Solo, and you're either going to be about that or you're not going to be about that. Now, for me, I didn't mind it as much. Did I think it was necessary for them to expand upon his name in the way that they did, instead of his name just being Han Solo? No, I think they could have just made his name Han Solo and it would have been fine. However, some people just felt so distraught about the fact that it was explained or expanded upon, and for me, it's like, it's not that big a deal. It really doesn't take away from the film. The rest of the film is a good time, and what I gotta say right out of the gate is Alden Ehrenreich really proved me wrong. Now, I think a part of me will always feel a little strange that it's not Harrison Ford, or at least an actor that looks a little bit more like Harrison Ford. But one thing I wanted to keep in mind was that growing up, again, people would always tell me that I was wrong for my opinions of the prequel trilogy, and I loved Hayden Christensen as Anakin. I loved Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, and these other characters that you see from the original trilogy that are in the prequel trilogy that are recast as these younger versions, I always really enjoyed them. So for me, I was thinking to myself, how can I criticize this film so heavily for doing something that I have accepted and loved so much with the prequels? For me, I just have to think it's a younger version of the character. It's a fantasy franchise. They've changed, they've grown, and everybody kind of changes their appearance a little bit over time. Sure, there's a bit of a drastic jump, I think, from somebody like Alden Ehrenreich to Harrison Ford, but I can buy into it since the film does take place about 10 years prior to the events of A New Hope. And in 10 years, your personality changes, you kind of age a little bit, you kind of change in your look, and I buy into it. On an overall level, I think that the casting for this film was well done. I really do like Alden Ehrenreich, even though there will always be that little moment in me that always thinks, yeah, maybe they could have cast somebody who looked a little bit more like Harrison Ford. However, I really do enjoy him in the role, and I really do think that he brings a lot to the character that is new to Han Solo, while also being very reminiscent of who Han Solo is. We got to see him a lot younger, a little bit more hopeful, a little bit more of the hero that we know him to be. However, when we see him later on in the films, he's a little bit more of a cynic. He's kind of more out for himself. And it's the events of this film that I feel that slowly start to chip away at that hopeful side of him, despite the fact that we know in this film, when you're watching it, that there's always been this side of him that wants to do do good and that is kind of a good person. It's also the events of this film and kind of the people he's around that kind of slowly teach him that he doesn't need to be this way and kind of harden him a little bit to become more of the Han Solo that we see in the other films. So I've always enjoyed seeing this different version of Han Solo as I've rewatched this film. I enjoy seeing this younger, more hopeful version with a little bit more heart and a little bit more care for others. And, you know, I think that they could have expanded upon that a little bit more when you watch this film. They definitely could have solidified things, especially near the end of the film. There's a character that I feel that he could have had more resolution with, and I feel really could have expanded upon and solidified that more cynical, hardened Han Solo that we know. And I really do hope that they expand upon this with some sort of Disney Plus series or maybe one more film to kind of give us that, because if you've seen the end of the film, they're obviously going off on another adventure that we know that they will be on. So that's definitely something that really excites me. But on an overall level, I really enjoyed the casting of this film. I think Alden Ehrenreich, as far as the mannerisms, the way he would say certain lines, the way he would walk, I think he just really did a great job of embodying what Harrison Ford brought to the role in a younger version. I think he does a great job of embodying Han Solo, not only in his lines of dialogue or the way he stands or even the stance that he has with his blaster. I think he just does a great job of embodying a younger version of the character, and I really have to commend Alden Ehrenreich for you know, stepping up to the plate and trying to fill some pretty big shoes, and I think he did a really good job. Then you have Donald Glover, who again worried me because, you know, he's a really popular face, Childish Gambino. To think of him playing Billy D, even though I know he's a good actor, and you know, to think of him playing Lando kind of just worried me. However, he did a really great job. I think that he, more than anybody, I think embodied everything that Billy D brought to Lando, and I think he definitely comes off as a young Lando in this film. I really enjoyed him in the role, and I never get tired of seeing him in this role now. Now that I rewatched the movie, you know, I have to give it up to Donald Glover. And when I watch this film, I think to myself, I'm just so happy that I was proved wrong, and it just solidifies more trust that I have in Lucasfilm and their ability to make these Star Wars films, because I just think that despite any flaws that the films may have, I just feel like they do a good job of giving us good Star Wars that is cohesive with the other films, and it's just a fun, good time. This isn't the most emotional and most exciting and most over-the-top Star Wars film. This is not that epic Star Wars film that you may expect from the main saga films. But on an overall level, I think there are some really great elements of this film that connect to the other films, that expand upon Han Solo. There's some really great action, some new characters that are introduced that I think will go on to become fan favorites, and will no doubt continue to be expanded upon in books and comics and other things. I really do enjoy the relationship between Han Solo and Chewbacca in this film. I think they do such a great job of expanding upon the two characters and really just giving us a great time between these characters. And as far as Chewbacca goes, this is easily the film that he has the most screen time in. We really get to know and expand upon Chewbacca in this film like we've never had before. You know, Chewbacca was always just a fun side character that was there. He's super lovable, and we all loved the big walking carpet. But in this film, he's a lot more of a character. In this film, you feel for him a lot more, and you are a lot more in line with the kind of character that he is. I always have such a great time watching all of the Chewbacca scenes in this film, and again, the connection between him and Han Solo in this film is so well done. There's also a really great cameo at the end of this film that you're either going to be about or you're not going to be about. If you've seen the Clone Wars and Rebels, it makes sense to you. If you have not seen Clone Wars and Rebels, it's going to come off a little like, what the hell? And I think that's just going to depend on who you are. And I really do enjoy this film for what it is. I really enjoy what they did with it. I appreciate the ambitious risk of doing this film. On an overall level, again, it's not my favorite Star Wars film, but I think it has some of the best visuals in the franchise, some really great action. It expands upon the character of Han Solo, even though some things maybe didn't need explanation. There's some things near the end of the film that I feel didn't really get the full resolution that you wanted to get. There's some things that I feel they easily could have made a sequel for, or maybe some sort of Disney Plus series. I feel like they almost left it open-ended, and after the fact that this film didn't really do well, we don't know if we're going to get another film. I think that kind of hinders the ability of getting a sequel or some sort of Disney Plus series that will expand upon this. So my biggest gripe about this film, outside of little things that I can nitpick, is that I really don't like the fact that there are things that are kind of left open. I think that they really should have just wrapped up this story and kind of just had it as a one-off, similar to Rogue One, where you don't really expect there to be anything else with these characters, and there doesn't need to be. And I think that they really could have done that with this movie. I think that they left things a little too open-ended in the last 10 or 15 minutes, expecting maybe they could make another one or some sort of expansion of this. So I hope they find some way to kind of give us more resolution near the end of the film. But yeah, I kind of hate the fact that this film did not do well in theaters, and I think that that's a mixture of a few things. One of those things being that it was too close to the release of The Last Jedi. These are not Marvel films, and I think that as much as I would be excited to go watch a Star Wars movie fairly often, I just think that after all the crazy arguments and just fans just being outraged about The Last Jedi, which just annoys the hell out of me, I feel like it just kind of led to a lot of people not wanting to see this new Star Wars film film, as well as it coming out really in the worst time it could have possibly come out. Here's a film that a lot of Star Wars fans, even myself, were not thrilled about. You know, you're recasting one of the most popular roles in all of Star Wars, and it's a film that I think a lot of us were really skeptical about. And then you release it after one of the most controversial Star Wars films of all time, right in the midst of highly anticipated films like Avengers Infinity War, Deadpool 2, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And despite what you think about those films, everybody wanted to go see those films a lot more than Solo, and I think that they should have just pushed it to the December release date like they did with all the Star Wars films. I get what they were going for. I think that film would have done a lot better had it come out in December, but again, there was still so much controversy around Star Wars because of The Last Jedi, and I think it just came out at a time that didn't benefit the film as much, and which sucks because most people that I know who didn't see it in theaters, who boycotted it and eventually saw it on home release, really liked it, and a lot of them were really disappointed that they did not see it in theaters, and I think that that kind of speaks to an issue that we have in the modern day, you know, this film world overall, but I won't really talk about that here. But on an overall level, guys, this is a solid film. This is a great Star Wars film with a lot of great action, some great visuals, and some great expansion of the universe. Some things didn't need to be explained as much as they were, and I think that there are definitely little things that are open-ended and some flaws that you can find in there and nitpick with, but I think that's kind of just the fun of Star Wars, is kind of being able to have these discussions, right? So leave your comments down below. Did you like this movie? Did you not like this movie? I definitely enjoyed it. I have a great time with this film every single time that I watch it, and I just love the fact that I wasn't a really big fan of the idea of this film, and I ended up being such a great fan of the film. So yeah, guys, leave those comments down below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and I will see all of you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.